Hey, hi guys. To continuation of our previous sessions, we were doing few programs on branching, if condition, if elif, and all right. So today we're going to see couple of more programs, and then we will move on to looping in our next upcoming sessions, right? So what are the programs we're going to see? We already covered with these area, perimeter, Ron's formula, and quotient. And the previous session we touched upon roots of and maximum of three numbers. Now we will see electricity bill and sort the user entered three numbers, right? So let's move on quickly. So what is electricity bill? So it is a normal program, right? So I made the problem statement as simple. That is to give some good understanding of if else if logic, and also for the students to think a little bit logically here. So the requirement is the user will enter the units and the output should be telling the amount to be paid, right? So say for example, if the units is from 1 to 100, the user should pay 1 rupees per unit. 101 to 200, 2 rupees per unit. 201 to 300, 3 rupees. 301 to 400, 4 rupees, and greater than 400, 5 rupees per unit, right? So the thing here is it's not the overall conversion, right? So it's the accumulation that is very important here. So what I mean by accumulation, say for example, if the units is 420, so it's not 420 times 5, 420 into 5, it's going to give 2100, right? That's not the case here. If the units is 420, for the first 100 units, you're going to pay 1 rupee. For the next 100 units between 101 to 200, you're going to pay 2 rupees. The next 103, next 104, and the balance after 400, which is 20 units, that only will be charged for 5 rupees per unit, right? So this is the calculation and explanation of the result. Okay, if it is 420, the first 100, 1 rupee, second 100, 2 rupee, third 100, 3 rupee, fourth 100, 4 rupees, greater than 400, but every unit it is 5 rupees. So basically you will end up in getting 1000, right? First, let's give a thought on this program. So the input from the user is just one number, right? And how you will identify how many units are needed, right? So basically we can come up with an approach where if the units is greater than 400, right? So then you can simply take the remainder out. Say for example, so first question is how will you know it's 20, or suppose 480 means I need to get 80 out of that 480, right? Because 80 times 5. So basic principle, whenever you want to get a number outside, is what? So basically, when you want to get a number outside, you need to do a modulus, right? So modulus of 100 will give you 80, correct? So this we will apply when if units is greater than 400, right? So every time when the unit is greater than 400, you can take a modulus of 100 to get the balance out. And that can be common for any kind use case. Say for example, if the units is 250, I need to identify how many hundreds are there in this, right? So first step is basically if the units is greater than 400. So let's start with the base case. So you're going to take the remainder part of it, right? And you already know the calculation. If the units is greater than 400, till 400, the charge is going to be this piece, right? Till 400, which is already calculated. You don't need to do it in the program. Okay. So 100, 300, 600, 1000. Okay. So till 400, if it is 1000, so if units is greater than 400, so all you need to know is how much is greater than 400 here, right? So to identify how many is greater than 400 here, how many units is left greater than 400, all we need to do is we need to subtract the number with 400 to identify the number of units greater than 400. Okay. So let's assume number of units is equal to units minus 400. So that part will give you what? That part will give you typically the amount of units is more than 400. Say for example, if it's 420, this will give you 20, right? So basically the amount, how will you calculate in this case? The amount will be 1000 till the 400 units plus the number of units that came out times 5, right? So this is the case if it is greater than 400. What if it is greater than units is greater than or equal to 300, 1 greater than or equal to 300, and units less than or equal to 400. So this is the range, right? From 301 to 400. Okay. So what we're going to do for this use case, I'm just picking that algorithm. I will do it here anyhow, right? So ideally, so I'm just telling it more like an algorithm here, not following proper syntax. But the idea behind, just focus on the idea. The idea here is you need to focus on taking the excess part here. So if units greater than 400, I need to know how many units that is greater than 400. So I subtracted with 400 will give me the number of units, and you already know how much amount I need to do. So similarly, till 300, you will know the charge. What is the charge is till 300. It should be this part, right? Till this part. So you know this already. 100 plus 200 plus 300. So make it sure that amount is 600 plus how much amount of units that left over, right? The same thing applies here. So here we go, right? Here you need to subtract with 300 because when the flow comes into this LF, right, the units is between a number between 301 to 400, right? So basically you need to subtract that with the actual, the previous base value to get the actual total units. So that's gonna give you here 600 plus number of units time for this use case 4 rupees per unit, right? So with no further delay, let me quickly jump into doing a program here. Okay, so I created a file, electricity bill. Okay, so now we're going to type the program. So let me get the input from the user. Units is equal to int of input. Enter the number of units. Fine. Now next, the case is gonna come over. If units is by chance greater than 400, so what you're gonna do? I'm gonna say additional units, right? Additional is equal to units minus 400, and the amount is nothing, but we know till 400 you're already going to pay 1000 rupees, right? By this calculation. So we already know that till 400 the amount is this 100 plus 2 3 200 plus 300 plus 400. So you don't need to do that calculation in the program. We already know it's 1000 rupees, so we can simply put that 1000 plus for the extra additional units greater than 400, which we're going to get from this approach. So that for that piece, it is how much? For that piece alone, we're gonna get times 5 for each unit, right? And then if units is greater than or equal to 301 and units is less than or equal to 400, it's gonna be minus 300. So this case comes when units is between 301 to 400. Say for example 360. So this condition phase 360 is not greater than 400. It's gonna come over here. It's greater than or equal to 301, less than or equal to 400. So you're gonna subtract with 300 to find how many such additional units. So for 360, you're gonna get this as 60. So till 300, what is the base price here? For till 300, the base price is 100 plus 200 plus 300, which is 600. So times. So and this is gonna be times 4, as per our rule here, right? So see here. So from 301 to 400, it's rupees 4 per unit. Okay. And the same thing we need to repeat for other also. So remember Python works by tabs here. Okay, so you need to be very careful. And then we do this 200. So till 200, the price is 100 plus 200, which is 300. And this is times 3. Okay, so this is a base price. This is 300 is base. Till 200 for first 100 rupees. Next 100 2 rupees. So it's 100 plus 200 is 300. So you need to find the additional units within this range by subtracting with 200. Okay. And then finally 101 to 200. Subtract with 100 and the additional base price is 100. This is going to be 2. Finally, one more greater than or equal to 0 and units less than or equal to 100. For this use case, the amount itself is units, right? Amount is units, because from 1 to 100, 0 to 100, the number of units consumed is the number of amount payable. And finally, else, you just say print the entered units cannot be negative, right? Okay, so the entered units cannot be negative. And what is the thing here is, we can print the entered units cannot be negative, right? So we can print the amount only if the units are not negative, right? Or we can print the amount is based upon the amount here. So one option is doing a print statement in everywhere in all the if conditions. So that may not be a proper approach, right? Okay, so in that case, what better we can do is, right, we can just simply print the overall units here, print the amount. Even if the negative amount is entered, you tell the amount payable is 0. Okay, that is one use case. If you don't want to tell if the user and if the negative units is entered, if you don't want to tell the amount payable, that message, then what we can do is we can say amount is equal to -1 to start with the default value, okay, which we call, and then you check simply if amount not equal to -1, right? Then you can say print the amount payable is amount. So why I am teaching you guys these approaches, this type of things can be useful in future programs, lot of programs where you assign some value and the amount will remain -1 only if it goes to the else condition, right? So that happens only if the user enters some negative value. So apart from any of the use case, it's gonna go greater than 400. The amount cannot be negative. Remember that, right? So let's quickly run this. Of units, I'm going to say 420. See, the amount payable is 1100, right? Yep. So let's try with some other number. Say I say units 275. So it should be 1 times 100 plus 2 times 100 plus 75 times 3, right? So that should be 75, 150, 225, 525. Let's see for that. Need to run it again. It's 525. Okay. So run again for negative value. So the entered units cannot be negative. So this is how you need to do some electricity bill. So the logics this program can teach us is to you efficiently use if else if logics, if else if ladder, and one more thing, how you take the additional units, okay, and solve this program. Next, we will move on to sorting numbers. User entered 3 numbers. Okay, fine. So this is the program. So the user will enter 3 numbers. Okay. So we need to sort in ascending order. Okay. So 10, if the user entered 10, 30, 25. So this is not yet in arrays and all. We are still in branching, but how this is possible in branching? So there is a very long technique to do this, like using 3 variables, and you check from if the user entered numbers A, B, C, you check if A greater than B and B greater than C. So you say A is or on the other hand, A is less than B and B is less than C. You say A is the smallest. And then again, you have to check within this if B is greater than less than C. You say B is second smallest and C is third smallest. So this condition goes on, right? So instead of this, okay, is there any easy approach? There should be, right? So even before moving on to that, some easy approaches, what we can do is we will learn swap. So how to do a swap basically. So that swap will help you on understanding. So what is a swap? Suppose you have A is as 10, B as 30. So you want to put value of B to A and value of A to B. So how will you do that? Suppose if you make A equal to B, what will happen? The value of B is copied to A and A is lost. Both will become 30. So we don't want to do that, right? So what is a better way to do that? So basically we can use some temporary variable. Like assume guys, like you have two things in your both hands, two chocolates, okay? You want to swap one with the another. Basically the left one should come to the right, right should left. So obviously you will use some temporary space, right? You will put one in a disk and take it out, correct? Similar to that, here also you will go with that approach only. Okay, so in this case we will use a temporary variable. You say temp is A and you copy A to B. Whatever you take a backup, put it in a temp and take B to A, and then finally the backup to temp. So what will happen with this approach is A, which is 10 is copied to temp, and B 30 is copied to A, and finally temp is back to B. It's just quite simple, right? So in Python, you can do it quite simply without even temp variable. So you can do like this: A comma B is equal to B comma A. Interesting, right? Many languages doesn't have this, right? In Java and C, C++, we don't, it doesn't support, but interestingly, for Python, it works, right? So A comma B is equal to B comma A. It automatically swaps A and B. So it knows how to deal with the temporary variable internally, okay? So that's what swap is all about. So why I'm focused on swap for this approach is, so first of all, why we need to do a longer approach? Because this, if even A is smallest and the else C here, C is second smallest and B is third and so on. And again, similarly, we need to repeat for the base condition being what? B less than A and B less than C. So it's lengthy. So the other approach we have is to swap these variables, right? So first, if A is less than B, right, which is good. Suppose if A is greater than B, I will swap with A. So think like this: if A is greater than B, swap A comma B. So what will happen by this? If A is greater than B, swap A comma B. So you will end up in getting, in case if A is smaller, you will make sure A comes to the first position, right? Correct. And then what you will do is, if A is greater than C, right? So basically you will swap A and C. So after doing these two steps, you will make sure, right, the maximum element comes to the beginning. Am I right? So say for example, 10 and 30. A is not smaller, A is smaller. So this will not happen in this input. Now 30 and, now sorry, 10 and 25, the same case. This also will not happen. For some other input, if so, both of these blocks will make sure that A comes at the beginning. So that means, so when you compare A with B, so here A and B and C are these three numbers, 10, 30, and 25. Okay. So when you compare A with B and A with C, you're making sure you're doing a swap so that the smallest element will become A. So that's the idea of this. So once the smallest element becomes A, so all you have to do is, if B is greater than C, right? Swap B and C. So the problem boils down to only two elements. If the two elements is not in place, you just swap those two particular elements, right? Okay, let's try this quickly. Okay. So I'm naming it as sort three numbers. I'm going to get the input from the user. Input. Enter the first number. Int input. Enter the second number is equal to int of input. Enter the third number. Okay. So now next, what I'm going to do is, if by chance A is greater than B, so our focus is to make the smallest of these three as A, right? So if A is greater than B, So the first number is not in place. Not in place in the sense the first number is the small, not smallest. So then make sure you swap A and B. So as I told in Python, you can do like this. A comma B is equal to B comma A. So A and B are now swapped. Okay. So now even after swapping, if A is just greater than C, so we didn't compare with C in this step, right? So then I make sure A comma C is equal to C comma A. So after this step, what will happen is A and C both A becomes the smallest of all the three values, right? So I made sure. Now, just to compare B and C, if they are not in place, if B is greater than C, which is supposed not to be, right? You just swap B and C. C comma B. And finally, you print the values, print A, print B, print C. I just want to make sure I print each one separately. And I say print the sorted values are right. Sorry, I need to put a semicolon here. Delete it here. Right. So okay, enter the first number 25, second number 40, third number 12. See here, the third number 12 came into the picture and then followed by 25, 40. So how this happened? Let me track this program for you guys. So initially A is stored in 25, B is stored in 40, sorry, 25 is stored in A, 40 is stored in B, 12 is stored in C. Okay. So now if A is greater than B, so you're comparing 25, whether 25 is greater than 40, which is not true. So we are good there. So now comparing 25 is greater than 12, which is true. So our motive is the first A should be the smallest, right? So we completely swapping A and C. So after that swap, how the program will look like is 12, 40, 25. Swap means the place of 25, 12 comes and place of 12, 25 comes. So it will become 12, 40 and followed by 25. Remember guys. And now B is 40 and C is 25, right? So now you check 40 is greater than, which is true. So I swap 25 and 40 again. And finally you will arrive in this place. Okay. Right. Okay. Okay guys. So go through this program again, right? Feel free to comment or reach out to me for any further questions. We will continue with more programs on looping. So next, what we're going to see is, so understand loops first. So what are the different types of a loop and what is a loop and how we're going to do while and do while, the sequence and range. A lot of exciting stuff. And remember a lot of programs. Remember to practice more programs as you progress. Thank you.